Hello, my friends. I've had a lot of folks recently ask, what is the SMART method? Is this massage? Is this physical therapy techniques? Is this yoga? Is this exercise? Is this some emotional processing practice? Yes. So the SMART method stands for Somatic Myofascial Active Release Therapy. And this is it's a long name, thus the acronym, but really in short is what it is. It's a culmination of the past 20 years of my experience in wellness and in my personal life and in my professional life. Over the years, I have intuitively practiced particular techniques as well as been introduced to particular techniques, and I've always looked for the underpinnings for how these things coalesce together to improve a wellness experience. And as the verbiage came to me for the things I was applying, it made it better for me to verbalize what was once only experiential. And so thus the somatic myofascial active release therapy. In short, this is a massage practice to start. When I first start working with folks, we start with table work. And it starts with the nervous system. Thus the somatic part, connecting to the nervous system. Now this is a technique that is a technique that I had initially intuitively started doing with my clients and saw that there was such profound shifting that I almost wasn't even sure why it was happening or how. I was just hearing from my clients that this was different than other sessions. And as I deepened my therapeutic practice, and interestingly enough, as I got into yoga and physical therapy, this verbiage became clearer. So the incorporating breath into the practice is how we connect to the nervous system. It's how we invite the nervous system into the session. And when the nervous system is present and receptive, then any sort of holding patterns of the physical body or the emotional body are able to be explored, to be processed, to be released. Because when we're hanging out in stress mode, in sympathetic state, fight or flight, etc., our body is not trying to relearn, to release, or retrain. So once we have the nervous system in a state of being receptive, of being releasing, of being retraining, well, then the therapeutic modalities skyrocket with their power. And so the somatic part is the incorporation of breath into the session. And there's other things too, but it starts with the breath. As I dove into yoga, I learned how important the breath is to connect movements, to connect particular energetic shifts. It's a very powerful centerpiece to the practice. What all these things have in common is they integrate the nervous system. They bring the mind and body into union. And when that occurs, the nervous system is able to be reset, to be grounded. So the integration of breath is powerful in physical therapy. Neuroplasticity requires the nervous system to be in a learning state. So again, if it's in guarding mode, if it's in protection mode, it's not able to be in relearning mode. So the breath is the cross bridge that unites the mind and body, because all of our patterns come from our nervous system. One of my favorite analogies, the water is the way in which the wave is expressed. If you understand that a wave, as it washes up on shore, water is simply molecules of H2O, but there's an underlying energetic wave that's creating that shape, that pattern. So the wave is actually the thing that can't be seen. What we're seeing is the water that gives shape, that gives form to that energy. Well, our body is similar, that we have tension patterns. Our body is the water. Our nervous system is the energy, the pattern holder. And so as we shift the nervous system and connect with it and bring it into the session, we connect with the energy that's creating the pattern in the first place. And this is where, again, these worlds cross over. We start connecting into the emotional world. This is where these things start to intermingle. So this is the somatic portion. The myofascial active passive release. This is, again, a neuroplasticity component, a bit of the yogic practices, and a bit of just neuromuscular massage, a bit of a couple other modalities that have been added over the years. But the essence is that our connective tissue chains, the ways in which our body links together, is how we get a particular pattern. If you think about it, you have tension in your traps. In order for there to be tension in the traps, there has to be underactivity somewhere else in the shoulder girdle. In order for that muscle to be like this, there has to be some other muscle that's not holding on as much. And so there's an imbalance in that kinetic chain, that kinetic group. Kinetic is force, is movement, the ways in which our body moves. So myofascial active release is a series of engaging actively and passively to release particular holding patterns. And the reason why the active part is so much more beneficial is because of, again, neuroplasticity, that we have particular patterns that are conditioned, repetitive, habitual, nervous system related. And so when we're just simply passively laying there, we're not creating new patterns, because neuroplasticity requires active participation. In physical therapy, if I was working with a stroke patient and I just was trying to rehab their arm, we'll say, if I just move their arm through a range of motion, I could do that all day and there would be zero improvement. But if I tell them to attempt to lift your arm, if I say, raise your arm, and they say, well, I can't. I know, but try. Trying to raise it, circuit's complete. And then as I'm helping them, now we're retraining motor patterns. So this is a very powerful technique. And when we're doing work on the table, oftentimes the therapist is trying to fight the tension of the client. Instead, when we have the client participate, that particular pattern is able to be released, because now the client is participating in the releasing. It's internal volition. Change comes from within. So again, an outside stimulus can apply a degree of pressure, but the change ultimately has to come from within. Again, a pattern that carries over from the physical body to the emotional body. These aren't coincidences, folks. It's very powerful. As we connect to the experiences within our body, as we connect to the patterns within our body, we circumnavigate the habituated patterns of the mind. And what happens is we get to release and retrain. Now, the table work is only one aspect. The reason why this is a smart method is because it's not just the table work. It starts with the table work. But often these patterns are created through habitual life behavior patterns. And so from here we can get into, maybe we just need to cultivate some different movement habits. But often we're not doing those particular movement habits due to events in our life, reasons, self-imposed limitations, belief systems. So the SMART method carries over into the inner world. This is where maybe we need to do emotional coaching, emotional processing, habit change, ways to cultivate internal shifts to change the patterns. So often we come for particular issues with our body, and then as we investigate the issues in our body, this leads to other inner world shifts, which present to external life shifts. This is how our human journey becomes such a beautiful experience. And so the SMART method, it's a journey in and through the body. And through that, we connect to our inner world. And if our inner world has some stuff in there, we get the opportunity to release it, to grow, to evolve, to stand tall, to walk with our shoulders, our head held high. We get to reset our sense of self inside of us so we can engage with the world without being pulled by the world. So this process, this SMART method, is very much an entire psychosomatic experience. And not everybody needs everything all the time. Sometimes we do just need some deep tissue massage. Sometimes we just need a little functional movement. Sometimes we just need a little guidance with some coaching. So there are ways to aspect just different parts of this practice, but they are still all intertwined. So I'll be sharing more on this method in the coming weeks, months, doing courses and whatnot. But I wanted to give a little snippet of what this SMART method is, of what I'm about. My main goal is to bring these Western practices and Eastern practices together and share them with the world to show how they're not opposing, they are not fluffy or silly, that there is a functional nervous system, emotional regulation component to these both Western practices and Eastern practices. And our union of the two is where we find that sweet spot of wellness. And this has been a goal of mine my entire life. I've always found myself to be a man of two worlds. I've often heard it said that I'm the medical guy in the spiritual world, and I'm the spiritual guy in the medical world. Well, and for me, that was never a problem, because to me, I see the underpinnings of how they come together, how they to help us create a functional way to be in the world. And this is what I want to share with my clients, with the world, with myself as I grow in this practice myself. I want to share my experience with others. So if you're suffering in some degree, I encourage you to be curious. Reach out. You can have questions. If I can help, I can help. If I can most likely point you in a direction of where help can be obtained. Well, thank you, my friends, for listening. Stay grounded.